Hi, everyone. I'm your co-host, Kevin Strike, here with co-host Alex Beddoes.
Hey, man.
Hey, Alex, it's been a little while since we chatted. How are you doing these days?
Yeah, I'm doing good. COVID slowly started to go away, or at least started to ramp down a little bit. Been doing personal projects, studio work, just chugging along nicely. And been noticing the big uptick in THU content on ArtStation Learning. So I'm trying to keep on top of that.
Yeah, we were lucky to. Andre gave us some of that content to put on Learning. It lets us just flood the ArtStation Learning with lots of great content. So it's been fun and been kind of reminiscing watching some of those trainings.
Reminiscent, like, because what reason have you been to the conferences?
Yeah. Actually, one of my favorite conferences, actually. And in 2020, the fact that we couldn't go because it wasn't on, because of the pandemic and everything, like it was one of the low points of the year, missed opportunities. Teacher was a cool conference, yeah, because you've got these top names and top artists in the industry that come. You spend a whole week with them, kind of like just in this isolated location. So you have access to chat with them. They're just like everybody else. Like you can walk up and have interesting conversations. And like I said, it's top artists. So yeah, watching some of that content on the THU TV content that we now have on Learning kind of reminisces a little bit and kind of see the crowds and how we used to be, in the before times. So.
I'm jealous, yeah, because the content's great. Like catching, Raphael Lacoste, or like the Ian McCaig one, the meaning of like one of my favorite talks. I never knew he did all these talks, and I see the Meaning of Life one, and I'm like, it's one of the best art talks I've ever watched. I'm like, oh, it's great. It's all on here. It's just really useful.
You get little peeks into the behind the scenes too, a little bit of the story behind the prequel episodes, and it's super interesting. So that's cool. All right. So, by the way, so for ArtStation Learning, if you're not exactly sure what we're talking about, ArtStation Learning, it is available to Pro and Plus subscribers on ArtStation. And there's a whole library of learning content, lots of stuff for you to learn, including some good training by Alex. So go ahead and check that out. All right. So this one, we had a great conversation with Laura Brouwers, also known as Cyarin, on Instagram and her other social platforms. I really enjoyed that chat.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a big fan of hers. I've followed her for a long time, ever since I first started getting into sort of art in general. Like when my early career was as a digital graphics designer, so it's like her Instagram was a great source of inspiration, and it's great just to talk about that. Her cultivating, because she has a very distinctive art style in all her characters. And really talking about how she cultivated that style. And I mean, she's both a very talented digital and traditional artist. And like talking about the distinction and the skill set differences, it was very insightful. I mean, I'm a 3D artist by trade. So like seeing that side of it and hearing that side of it was incredibly useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I enjoyed learning about that part, the part about how she learned her craft, and she was talking about being self-taught and self-trained, and both working in digital and traditional. Also, of course, when you're talking to her, you have to be chatting and asking her about social media and her incredible following on social media, and how that affects how she thinks about things, how she's posting things, what she's posting, and the effects of what comes back from the community, the feedback that she gets on that.
Yeah, that's the one which I think is it's universal to every artist, whether you're 3D, whether you're 2D, graphics, whatever it is. Like she is a master of how she's cultivated that social media platform. There's a lot to learn from that. And also, something that everyone might not know about, it was really interesting hearing her talk about how she's an artist who has autism, and how that affects her since she announced it, how it's affected her platform, how she conducts herself online, and challenges that face her as an artist with that condition was very interesting. It's something we never get to talk about. So hearing her talk about it so openly and honestly, it was incredibly insightful.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I remember when we signed off from that episode and just turned off my computer and walked away, I was thinking, man, I can't wait until we release this so everyone can hear it. All right. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Hi, Laura. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Yeah, it's great. Really looking forward to this conversation. Alex and I have been talking about it for a while. Just maybe to set the stage, of course, there are many millions of people that know about you and follow you on social media. But for those that are listening right now in our audience that maybe don't know too much about you, maybe you could set the stage a little bit, describe a little bit about what you do across social media and your other work.
All right. Well, I'm Cyarin. That's how I'm known online, but my actual name is Laura Brouwers. I'm kind of an accidental professional in the field, I guess, because I started drawing and posting on social media when I was a teenager, and I basically put my whole process of becoming a younger artist and then going to a professional artist and the way that I improved my artwork over time on my socials. And I kind of accidentally got into the field of character design through that. And I'm really lucky that I'm able to do it professionally. I guess you could say that I'm currently mostly just an artist and influencer hybrid. That's the way that I describe it, because most of my work now comes through my social channels and promoting all kinds of brands and all kinds of things through my illustrative work, which I'm very lucky about. I think the best way to describe some of these posts would be almost editorial, because sometimes it's products that I use but are not necessarily directly related to art itself, or the piece is not directly related to, a professional art setting, or I'm designing something. No, it's to convey a message or tell a story or promote something. So yeah, it's a bit weird, but very cool.
So through your socials, I mean, I'll be honest, I've been following for a long time. I've been a big fan of your art for a long time, and you've got a very distinct style. But it's odd because you kind of have a repertoire almost of styles that you lean into, but they're all distinctly you. I see a post I'll go through my feed, and if I see it, I'm like, yeah, sorry, and I recognize it.
Thank you.
How did that come about? How do you cultivate that?
I mean, I think it's the same with a lot of people on Instagram and stuff. I feel like I very much fit into the Instagram artist group. I don't know if that's a thing, but I feel like it might be a thing. I definitely cultivated a brand around Cyarin. It feels almost like a job to draw for my Instagram, which I struggled with in the past because I was just drawing for myself. Then it became my job. And then I was like, okay, am I happy with what I'm doing right now? Is it truly what I want to do? So over the past few years, I've rediscovered my style again and again. And I've been more influenced by other artists. And then, obviously all of my work is very, very contemporary and very inspired by other artists, but it's definitely changed a lot in the way that I'm just constantly looking to evolve and change and make stuff that I'm really happy with. And I feel like in the past 2 years, especially, I released a book in 2018, I believe. And that was very much focused on your unique style, your process, the way that you work. And during that time, I was actually at my lowest, which was really frustrating for me to work with a publisher during that time, because they didn't really understand. They were very much focused on we're going to release a book with a popular influencer. And after that, I took about a year off, drawing regularly. I sometimes didn't post for 1 or 2 months, which was incredibly rare for me. I used to nearly post every single day. And in that time, I've been really just pushing myself to really understand what is my ultimate goal in artwork and what do I want to do. I'm still not there, and I will never be, probably, but I've definitely adjusted my studying and just being comfortable changing it up a lot, because I was very, very limited by what Cyarin was, I think. So yeah, it's
how do you mean what was limited about it? What aspect of it made it feel limited?
It was the expectation from over 1 million followers that followed me for a specific thing. So it was very much the pretty girl artwork. And even to a point where other people were pointing it out. Sometimes they were pointing out that my style was rigid and my posts were rigid, and they were very similar. They still are, but in a way where I'm a little bit more happy with consistency rather than feeling stuck. Because I was posting nearly every single day. Thinking up a piece every single day is nearly impossible. And not having that sort of pressure on myself anymore really really helped. And also during that time, I was drawing a lot without. I was studying, but not really studying quite well. I didn't know how to study because I'm completely self-taught. And that's that really limited me because I was just really good at this one very specific drawing that I kept doing essentially. But yeah, right now I feel like I'm doing a lot more stuff that made me really happy. I don't know, that was not as eloquently put as I wanted it to be, but I hope it makes sense.
It's spot on. But one thing I've been really enjoying for me as an artist is when you take a photograph and then you're doing an illustration based off the photograph, because it goes past like just making a pretty picture. You have to interpret something and apply your style and kind of exaggerate certain like expressions or moods or gestures. Like is that hard to do? Like, because you're right, you did have a particular style. Like, I knew that's why I originally followed you back in the day. But these sorts of posts I've been really enjoying because it's kind of I guess it forces you out of your comfort zone, because depending on the attire, like you don't get to dictate so much. You have a photograph as a reference. Is that one of the reasons you started doing that, just to sort of kind of pull you out of your comfort zone, essentially?
Yes. Also, I think it's hard to constantly make work just completely freely. I was questioning a lot about the topics that I was drawing about, especially because of the platform that I have. I was struggling with the idea of like, okay, I just want to create pretty pictures because it's kind of like a portfolio to put your work out there on social media. But then on top of that, I was also very aware of the platform that I had and the way that people were looking at my artwork. And even now to this day, when I draw something that has some sort of like, I guess like, what do you call it? Value to society or something, or is like a relevant topic, or I'm drawing a figure that is controversial, even like, I did, for example, a portrait of Greta Thunberg, and the comments in that post are insane. But yeah, that sort of stuff I'm definitely very aware of. But I felt like with that piece, it was just a portrait. I wasn't really telling my own story. I was just contributing to another platform with my own. Mm-hmm. It's weird. I think the photo studies have helped me a lot in being able to be productive and study and make my work attractive to a big following. Like both my artists that follow me, people that look up to me because they want to draw like me, because they can see how I'm stylizing and what I'm doing and how I set up a piece. And then on top of that, it's also just, it's an attractive picture because it's probably on Instagram somewhere, on Pinterest somewhere or something like that. So yeah, it's a whole like weight off my shoulders not to have to think of my own thing if I work based off that stuff.
So is it somehow like frustrating, or feels like you're limiting and bound, that you might be thinking about doing a specific piece of artwork, but then maybe another part of your brain is thinking, oh, if I do this, maybe people are going to take it that way, and it's going to get all complicated, and then you start driving yourself crazy because you're not drawing for yourself anymore. Yeah. Also,
I was just kind of thinking about, I don't know, like you think about the value of your work a lot as an artist. Like, what am I contributing to the world? I think it was just as simple as that stuff, I guess. Just the bigger question of like, why am I making this and who am I reaching with it? And yeah, not necessarily worried about what other people are going to say, because, I wouldn't be an artist if I did, to an extent. I mean, I do care about what people think, obviously, but I care about what I can make a difference in. And yeah, I was over questioning myself a lot with like, God, my work should have more value, or like more depth, or more complex themes. And sometimes as a designer, because technically that's what I guess I am, it's hard to do that constantly while also being productive. It's why all companies have big teams, right? We're just by ourselves as influencers. We have to cultivate the entire thing. We have to come up with the concepts, the designs, the actual production of the artwork, and then promoting it on social media and all that. It's definitely a whole lot of jobs in one.
So you mentioned the fact that you do design work. So up until this point, I've known you for your social media and the artwork you create, your personal art. Obviously, a lot of it's based around characters, people, and you want to design a lot of like, women. Yeah. Mm-hmm. One of my questions is, and this is just like from the outside looking in, I have no idea. You're constantly designing attire, costumes, and all that sort of stuff. Has that led this is a personal thing for me to know. Has this led to much like commercial design work for you, like for like fashion specifically? Because that's one of the things I do quite like, is the sort of the fashion side of it. Like there's some really interesting attires designed, and I'm like, okay, this is quite curious to me, like for illustrators. So is this something that's been an avenue opened up to you?
Yeah, so most of my character design jobs are very much related to making the outfits for the characters feel contemporary and realistic. And I feel very lucky with that stuff because it's just a hobby of mine. And also, it's one of those things where I never realized how limiting I was myself with not properly using reference and all that sort of stuff. And I think a lot of people do. And especially growing up, we draw the same t-shirt and the same sneakers because Converse is so, like, they're easy to remember because they have such limited, like, parts of the shoe. That's just an example. But I was like, wait, can I not just draw the sneakers that I actually wear? And that became a whole thing. And then I started drawing my outfits to be able to combine selfies and art because selfies are such an Instagram thing. And then I was sharing a little bit of my life throughout them as well. And I've been doing that for like 3 or 4 years now. You can really see how I changed in terms of clothing style and art style, which is really, really fun. But yeah, I think that's always been the main driving force in the commissions that I get in terms of character design is the fashion, the contemporary feel, because I think, and it's in comics too, I think there's a pretty dated fashion sense, unfortunately. But I see it more and more that artists, especially female artists in my age bracket, are doing more contemporary fashion work and incorporating that into other stories as well. I think it's really fun.
On another side note, sorry, I'm like, because I follow so long, there's lots of questions I have, and it's one thing I am quite curious about for you as an artist. Mm-hmm. You do both digital and traditional, which I don't know whether it's my lack of understanding for that side of the industry. A lot of digital artists I know pretty much only do digital, apart from like a few which are very open about how much traditional work you do. What is the ebb and flow? Like, what makes you decide to do a traditional piece versus a digital piece? Like, how does that work? How does that interaction work?
It depends on the weather sometimes, because if it's really hot, I don't want to be sitting in my office with my Cintiq. But now I have my iPad, which also makes my work more digital. Thank God for them. They're great. Yeah, I think it just has to do with what I want to do in the moment, where I want to sit. Also, pencil work, I just really enjoy. I find it really therapeutic, but I barely finish work and barely do any jobs traditionally. I do have an aspiration to start painting traditionally, but I think I need to do a few studies and get a proper workshop in if I want to start painting with oils or acrylics. I think oils would probably suit my style best, but yeah, it's something that is like on my radar and something I really want to do. But with the amount of work that I get through social media and with Twitch streaming as well, which I now do, digital art is just way more attractive for me right now. And also I've been making some content retroactively with pieces that I've made in the past because, for example, TikTok and Reels are now a thing on Instagram and they're really good for engagement. So I was like, okay, I'll give them a shot. And I used some old artwork, which I had saved different phases of and layers. And I created sort of like a video where I was, making it. So I was it's really stupid, but I just made a little clipping layer and I pretended like to paint it in like one brush stroke, but it was just a phase through it. Yeah, it was quite fun to do it that way. And I feel like that sort of stuff, I'm allowed to do way more, and I can do way more things retroactively for commissions as well. And I think like saving the layers has always proven to be really good, because sometimes I'll go, oh, can you do a story post anyway if I do a job for a client or a company, and then they come back later and they're like, oh, we should be able to remind people of like this, whatever it is that I've promoted that we've got going on. And I'm like, okay, sure. I still have the layers, so I can just whip it up and show the process, if that makes sense. So it's very attractive in that way.
that reveal's so cool. I remember when I first saw that, it's like, because it's similar to Naomi Van Doren. She does like watercolor paintings, and she masking tapes the edges, and she'll remove the masking tape. I mean, I can see the painting already, and I'm like, oh, it's really cool. And I kind of got that vibe when I first saw it. I was like, oh, okay, this is actually a really neat way to reveal a painting, because also that it's nice seeing the difference between the line art to the final painting. The way the personality changes, the mood changes. So I have to admit, when I saw that, I was like, I really dig that. That's a
Oh
really
god,
cool
do you
style.
those comics of people going like, oh, the sketch versus the line art, look how different it looks, or sometimes, the line art is so bad in comparison to the sketch. That's how I feel with those posts, honestly, because such a difference. God, if I see one more of those comics, I'm gonna scream.
So you were mentioning that you're self-taught. Like all of this has been self-taught. Like maybe you started out traditional, and then you walk us through a little bit about how you learned to do what you're doing now.
I started like copying drawings from Witch comics. I'm such a huge fan of Alessandro Barbucci. I think that's how you say his name. And he follows me now, and he likes my posts and comments on it. And I was, it's so cool. Yeah, that's how I started, I think, and just trying to draw the characters that I liked. So I was probably like 11 at this time. And my mom was always putting me and my sister to like do things that weren't necessarily watching TV. So we would be creative, even if it meant just cutting stuff from magazines and like putting it in like a collage or something. She also had, she watched other kids when we were coming back from school to like eat lunch and all that sort of stuff. So she always had to keep 4 kids busy, me and my sister, and then these other 2. So yeah, I was always just encouraged to do creative stuff. And being autistic, I definitely felt a lot of comfort in going back into my room and just being able to relax and keep myself busy creatively, whether that meant drawing or playing Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 and making really elaborate roller coaster tracks, or making half pipes for my fingerboards. I don't know if that's like too niche, but like I made half pipes out of cardboard to just pretend to be a skateboarder on it. But that sort of stuff I found so much comfort in, the same with drawing. So then I think I joined what was kind of like the Dutch MySpace. And I remember a kid in my school invited me to that. And she liked anime and manga really like a lot. I didn't, but I wanted to be like these people so much because they were slightly older than me, and they were all drawing, and they all drew manga inspired artwork. And they told me, oh, we work in Paint.Tool-Sci. That's the software I started working in back then. And they were like, I use a digital tablet. I was like, you can draw digitally? I was using my mouse to color in my scanned sketches at this time. So that's kind of how I just did a lot of experimenting, but I've been using the same software for a long time. And obviously I've branched out here and there. But yeah, I've just always been really interested in how other people used the software to create certain effects. And also from very early on, we were live streaming to each other using like Skype and that, and sharing our screen. And it would just be like 5 or 10 of us maximum talking to each other and just hanging out and showing how we drew. And yeah, that's kind of how I learned, by looking at what they were doing and them explaining it to me. But we were all like teenagers. We were all just starting out. And then, that website died, unfortunately, much like MySpace. And we had to find our own place. And that's where I came to Instagram pretty early on, when it was still a photo editing app. And I just kept going. If you see my first posts on Instagram, it's like they're old, and they're really bad. I barely knew how to draw digitally, let alone draw at all. So yeah, pretty much up till where I started to take it more seriously, I guess. And it was really like something that defined my personality. And I was like, I'm a creative person, and I enjoy drawing a lot. That's where it was. And you can see my entire route from being a teenager to a professional artist on my Instagram, which I think is really cool. And that's why I would never delete any of it. Maybe some that I really, really hate, but like the general like idea, I will definitely keep on there.
So at the beginning, then using Instagram was just a way to show your artwork to other people. You didn't even really think about where it would lead.
It was just my friends that I was trying to keep in touch with because we had no other place to go. So yeah, it was really nice. It was kind of, like a club. We were all from different parts of the country, so we would literally jump on a train for like 4 hours to see each other and hang out in a park and sketch. It was really fun.
Was there a moment then with Instagram that something happened and you looked at the numbers or and you're like, oh, something strange is happening here, something big is happening?
So I started watching YouTube, I think, and that's what inspired me to be like, okay, people can become popular online and become kind of well known. And I think I was on another drawing app, and I ended up being a moderator there. And I made a few close friends there. And when that started happening, I started getting a following there and having like some sort of role model figure, if that makes sense. I made tutorials and all that. And this was a long time ago, so they were really, really bad. But it was still like in my teenage years. And then after a while, I was like, wait, I'm a really big fan of these YouTubers, but they're more tangible than, for example, celebrities were. And that's kind of my first touch with like influencers and what that means and the way that we have a more personal connection with these people, which is why obviously influencer marketing is so big, and it's why I get jobs now too. But yeah, I started drawing fan art for these people and they would share it. And I quickly noticed that that would get, a lot of shares, a lot of likes. And I think, yeah, I remember saying like, oh, when I crossed 1,000 followers or something, I was like, maybe I can do 10,000. And then when I hit 10,000, I was like, maybe I can do 100,000 or 1,000,000. And I remember everybody going, yeah, sure.
Right.
And it happened. So yeah, it was definitely just looking at other influencers in different industries that, YouTube had been around for a little while at this point, but because it's been 12 years, 13 years or something for YouTube now. Yeah. So I was kind of seeing, okay, maybe I can do it as an artist. And I feel like that's when the first influencers in terms of artists were starting to pop up. I remember people like Piccolo, he was there with me at the beginning on Instagram, and we were both really bad, and we collaborated and we started posting and making fan art of each other's characters. And, kind of like how YouTubers all have their cliques and the people that they hang out with and make content with as well. And that's kind of how it started going. It was mostly just taking it from one industry to another.
Do you find it's funny just hearing talk about all of this? It's weird as artists because I don't know about you, but the way I have to frame everything is it's almost like it's a business, or like it's an entrepreneurial endeavor in the sense of you have to think quite long term. You're thinking of what you're doing and what you're doing going forward. In terms of being a professional artist, anyway, I feel like you have to we think that way in the sense of, okay, we need to make sure we're like even representing ourselves well. For example, any professional artist, they don't go online and say a bunch of daft things that could potentially get them in trouble with their clients.
Yeah.
You have to bear these sorts of things in mind, just like a business would, or like how you advertise yourself, how you go out and get more work. Have you had to? I guess for you, being so big on social media, is that like?
It's hard because it's more personal. I see a lot of people in the industry, like especially in the game industry, who are on Twitter as much as I am. We obviously share so much, like especially in a day like this. There's so many political things that we are involved in, and also related to the industry. There's so many things that we talk about. I caught myself earlier this week where I made a tweet about freelancers getting paid on time, and it was about frustration that I shared with a friend because they were not getting paid on time, and it was so I wanted to like get it out there. And then a client of mine, a company, liked the tweet with the company account. I was like, oh, just to clarify, it wasn't me that I was talking about. I had a really good experience because I just did a sponsored job for them. And I was like, oh, damn, that's really embarrassing. But yeah, it's obviously I have a little bit more freedom as a freelancer and an influencer by yourself, which I'm very thankful for. I know that a lot of people working for companies have to be like, oh, my views don't represent the views of my employer and all that. But yeah, I'm glad that there is space for people to do that, even in the industry, that they can share that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm always careful about, what I say and being nuanced. I know that there's a lot more, I feel like in lockdown, controversy has like been more common, especially in the art industry. I was really surprised. It almost got to like drama, like YouTube drama. I was very surprised that was happening. Ultimately, it's the same industry and it makes a lot of sense, but everybody's making so much more online content right now because we have so much more time at home. We're not commuting anymore. Some of us are completely out of work, not doing conventions and all that. So everybody is taking to engaging with people online and doing streams and doing YouTube and all that. Yeah, I was really surprised that it was happening with our community.
I think it's mainly all I can think of is boredom. Like because really everything. It's like I was thinking about what my day used to look like. You talk about sport, you talk about the TV series. And the beginning of lockdown, it wasn't such an issue because there was still a bit of sport going on. Films were still rolling out a little bit.
Mhm.
We're at this point now where like there's nothing to do but talk about the politics because that's all that's going on in the world right now. I mean, we can't have a conversation with somebody we don't know without COVID coming up, and then it becomes political, and I think everyone's in this like kind of boiling pot of all we can talk about is political stuff, and not everybody knows how to communicate online properly.
Mhm.
As artists, I guess we spend a lot of our time online, so there's certain etiquette and ways we conduct ourselves. But people who aren't used to it, people say things which are like, "Oh wait, this is on the internet forever," and I've just said something without thinking. Oh, okay, that's not good. Like because they're not used to it. I think a lot of people are out of their comfort zones.
But even with stuff that isn't necessarily political, we're getting a lot more open conversation about and I think this is also kind of an effect of COVID, is that people were talking a lot more about the financial aspects in life, because so many people are struggling financially right now that it became less taboo, because everybody's just opening up about where their money comes from, where their income comes from. The fact that there was no more conventions happening, which supplemented a lot of artists' income on the side of their freelance or office jobs. That wasn't happening anymore. So a lot of people had to turn to, supporting artists online, and the discussion, like a lot of discussions came up. I remember the freelancer rate discussion that was huge on Twitter. It was intense. And then especially because I also kind of got flack for it, which I didn't really get involved with that conversation, but anytime I was giving input or talking about rates, people were like, "It's easy for you to say because you're very popular." And I was like, "It's easy? Do you know what I did to get here?"
Yeah.
So it was weird. And obviously smaller controversies and things where people were, what was it again?
I remember there's been a few. There's one I remember which was somebody said, as an artist who just basically said, it's not easy. Like we got here through the exact same means as everybody else, and yes, we get more work, but we still ran that road. And also, I think the reason I think that blew up, I remember seeing it was because I'm paraphrasing, but along the lines of, understand you may not be getting work because you might not be good enough yet. And there was that, which is true. Like every artist has to go through. You yourself went through this. I've gone through this, where you're not good enough to earn a living off this yet.
Yeah.
One day you will be, but not right now. Maybe that's why, rather than just blame, because I think that's what I saw is, it's easy for you to say, and this was aimed at all the successful artists, mainly illustrators for some reason. I don't know why it was quite bound to the illustrators community, but it's like it's easy for you to say you're popular, and it's like.
Also, it's really annoying because a lot of people in the industry, and even my friends that work in the industry, they're talking about the social media aspect with me, and then people on the outside are following both of us, and they're going, "Why do you have 1.7 million followers, but this artist from whatever game company they're talking about that has so much more experience than you is so much better than you?" Which I completely agree with, because once again, I'm pretty young. I'm just starting out, and I have no professional experience. I can write on my own art for a long time, but from a realistic standpoint, I completely agree with that. And that's how I would review my artwork if I were to get my own portfolio in front of me. But they don't understand that working in a company and having a portfolio that works for clients, or for a more traditional route of work is so different from doing social media. And what I do is an entirely different job. And marketing yourself as a brand is so difficult, especially if you're already having a different job in the field. I can't imagine how exhausted you are at the end of the day, and to imagine doing everything that I do on the side of having a normal office job. God, I can't imagine.
It's funny because times have changed, basically. Like the idea that, I mean, how many artists, especially with the way COVID's affecting everything, and everyone working more remotely, and the industry is so open right now, that the idea of, okay, I'm going to sit quietly in my studio and chug along. Them jobs are becoming fewer and fewer and far between. It's a lot more contract-based work, which means you have to move around a lot. But now the moving around element's been taken away, because suddenly the rabbit's out the hat. Everyone can work from home quite easily. It used to be you can't work from home because security, and COVID forced everybody.
And also meeting the right people is harder now because you're not in networking events anymore. Yeah, that's been detrimental for a lot of people I know. But yeah, I can imagine. Oh gosh, I didn't even think about the servers.
Well, it's funny though, because Discord, for example, has opened up their servers, like, so you don't have to pay to get like there used to be like a subscription service so that you can get like decent screen sharing. Now they're like, okay, since everyone's working from home, we're gonna open this up for free. And
yeah, it's really good.
Their servers were hammered. Like, I use Discord every day, and that initial couple of weeks, it was pretty rough. Like, the servers were overloaded with people trying to use it.
I can imagine. Well, I haven't really had to use it for work currently, but yeah, I remember having to sign into some when I did a few freelance jobs. Currently, that's just not paying as much as a social influencer like sort of jobs that I get, which is really nice. But yeah, I remember the limitedness of like professional sharing services where people could work in an online space, and with things like Zoom now and Discord and whatever things and platforms that are out there, I don't really know much of them because I currently don't work in the field. Yeah, it's kind of nice that it's all become so much more open. I also think that it's kind of outdated, the fact that we weren't able to work at home so much. So that's something that's nice that come out of it. But only, yeah, I mean, I know people that work in a completely different field that are working from home now and that are probably never coming back to the office because it's just not necessary. Everybody's moving away from the big cities because they're like, why would I pay sky high rent here in London if I can live somewhere else and pay a fraction of the price? I think it's going to mean a lot of stuff for that and for the industry, hopefully, as well. Because it would be so nice if artists from countries and more remote locations were able to get a foot in the industry. And I feel like that's probably happening right now. I don't really have a good idea of it, and I'm not going to pretend like I do, but it just makes sense in my brain when I think about it for a little bit, especially as somebody who is not from a country where there's a lot of, I mean, there is some gaming companies and all that here in my tiny little, as we call it, frog country. I don't know why. But yeah, the US and the UK always seemed like such a dream place to live for me. And I've really kind of taken a step back and be like, maybe not with the way that they're handling things.
You mentioned the platform the huge platform that you have on social media, and that causes your voice to be heard among others, and that you wanted to use that to do good and bring positive change in the world. Are there specific examples of things that you feel like you've been able to kind of advance things in a positive way?
So given this podcast is being released later, I think I can talk about this. For example, I did a really good job today that I'm about to post, actually, that really gave me freedom to work on something that was dear to my heart. I am autistic, so I always speak very much about that stuff. And also, I think in terms of body positivity, although I definitely haven't drawn as many diverse bodies as I want to, I try to give little bits of at least personal empowerment and, if that makes sense, trying to make the people that I draw be seen in a light that I see them in, especially if they're real people. When I draw portraits of individuals that have impacted my life or that I look up to, or people that look up to me and that are entering in the contest, because I barely do private commission work, because I want to do the giveaways instead, where I can draw people that, that I see, the faces that I see in my followers, and scrolling through those hashtags of Sketch Me Cyarin is just so nice to see the actual faces of people. Yeah, and I've been so lucky to actually meet people in person, and now through Twitch be able to talk to them and have a one-on-one conversation. Yeah, I feel like people also really listen and read my descriptions and engage very thoughtfully with my comments. If I have a particularly heartfelt discussion or a post that I make about it, I always get so many comments compared to just when I post a drawing, because people really read and they really engage thoughtfully with my work, which I think is really nice. Yeah, the example that I have today is it's going to be a lovely piece about neurodiversity and positive change that is required for people that might have an invisible disability. And the theme was positive change, and it's really hard to convey that, like, or neurodivergence in an illustrative way, I think, because the ways that you can illustrate it are so stereotypical and so linked to having to kind of abstractly illustrate a feeling almost, that I was like, okay, but what do we really need? And that's somebody else looking in. So that's something that I use as a lead for the piece. I'm very happy with it. I'm very proud. But yeah, also the thing that, because you said it's a platform that you have and you want to do good with it, but I really have the conflicting sides of, okay, I want to do good with it, but I also have a business and I have like my personal interests, and I have to really think about what I'm doing and what I'm posting and the way that it engages like in terms of other content, I guess. How many comments is it going to get? What kind of reaction is it going to get from people? So I have to be honest, but I also have to be a little bit sly. And I know how to do it, but I can't comfortably do it all the time. And also a lot of people, ask me like, oh, can you share this? Can you share that? It's really hard for me to draw a line with what I can share on social media, because there's so many people going like, can you share this fundraiser for this important cause? Can you share this fundraiser? Can you share this person's artwork because they're going through a rough time? Like, it becomes from something like sharing something that I completely stand behind, and that is something that really needs urgent action, and that, needs that huge push, to niche stuff, and then goes almost into, well, now I want to help everybody because there's people that can't eat. There's people that, from, people that are struggling to get work to people that literally don't have a place to sleep. I'm like, where do I draw the line? Do I do something for a bigger cause, or can I help individuals? Which individuals do I help? And if I help one person, do I have to help everybody? It's very complex. And especially as somebody who has a very, like, autism, and seeing everything in black and white is so difficult in this case, because I'm so righteous and I'm so about fairness, to a fault, and to like a point of, that's what most of my meltdowns as a kid were about. I wouldn't be able to function if something was not right. And I would freak out. It's it's hard to be staying sane through that. And I'm very definitely hard on myself with making those calls on my own.
But I guess you need to, because otherwise, I guess if you share absolutely, it's kind of like, it becomes noise almost. If you have somebody who's someone's constantly posting, and all you see is that, it's like, okay, I'm just going to stop paying attention to this because that's all I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Whereas if you post the key things, it's like, it's still quite impactful. And it's like I said, I can't begin to empathize with it, but I imagine it's such a hard balancing act where, like you said, you have to pick and choose which ones you want to commit that resource to, because otherwise nobody gets listened to.
Yeah. And I still get like a lot of quite frustrated messages from people who are like, you should be sharing this platform with other artists because they deserve it just as much. And I'm like, well, yeah, I can't help everybody get their work out there. And if they can't get their work out there on their own, maybe it's not going to be helpful for me to just hand it out, if that makes sense. Like, you can teach a person how to fish, or you can give them fish, kind of the
this
case.
Is quite frustrating. So, sorry, this is frustrating though, because like, it's not like you're a 60-person team who are making decisions based, you're a person. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm frustrated you're not doing something. Or I'm an autonomous human being. Like, come on.
I can't be online all the time. I can't be on top of everything. Yeah.
You're a person, but it's ridiculous to be frustrated. Oh, you didn't do what I wanted you to do. It's like,
there are a lot of people sitting in their armchair not helping with anything, and then just pointing it at the finger at everybody else, saying, oh, everybody else, yeah, you should do this, you should do that. Those that step out and say, hey, I want to support this cause, or this is what's important to me, and you're passionate about it, that's going to make all the difference, and you're going to have success. We all don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
All these things. And yes, there's a lot of bad things happening in the world, but it means a lot that, to focus on one thing, put your energy on that, and do that thing well.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to, when I go for something, I completely go for it. And also I need to keep, my own brain sort of at rest as well. Like I can't constantly be in that environment, and I can't make my art all about that, if that makes sense, about just fighting for social causes. Um, Even though arguably that's the best thing that I can do with my artwork right now, and I get a lot of fulfillment out of that. It's still it shouldn't be everything that I do, and I'm still tirelessly going to work to make it something that I can actually do, and if I can get engaged with the conversation in a helpful way, then I will always do that. But yeah, it's definitely very hard.
One thing I think would be very productive to talk about is you mentioned the autism side of things, and from the outside looking in, like who has no perspective, it'd be great to hear this talk about how has it affected your journey, like when you observe other people's journeys in art, how they tackle art, how they learn, how they interact. What are some of the sort of barriers or the things that have been in your way due to something like that? Can you describe that whole relationship to me?
I guess a lot of people, there's definitely that part of like, okay, of course you're really good at art, or of course you have this one specific talent because that's what people think autism is. They think Rain Man. That's a very stereotypical, like normie view.
Mm-hmm.
I guess normie. People that are not necessarily also artists. I feel like in this community, there's a lot more people that are not neurotypical, which is so good because we actually have, especially with peers, we have people that we can talk to about this stuff, and especially in work-related conversations that can be so helpful. But with social media, I wasn't sure if I wanted to put it out there because I'm sure you've seen this, but it's that sort of like, oh, this person has X disability, or they have had this illness or whatever, and they beat it. And look at them now. That sort of inspirational story where it has to be sort of crazy, extraordinary. And or it's also, they have autism, so it's really impressive that they're doing anything at all. And I saw this whole phenomenon happen amongst my peers and people with autism, that they would aspire to be just known for having autism, and they would be like, I want to become a public speaker. And it's really weird to me because I was like, we have a few of those people out there already that are, inspirational speakers and that have overcome hardships. And in some cases, this can be really helpful because this is the first time that we hear about it. But with autism, I feel like there's such a big group of people that have this. I mean, I don't know exactly the numbers, how many people, but there's a huge autism like community, if that makes sense. And I was like, I want to be known and I want to be celebrated for something that I have control over, not something that I didn't choose. So when I started posting about my artwork, it wasn't a part of what I was talking about online. And then slowly when I became more and more well known, and I this is really silly, but I remember distinctly when I was in healthcare, I was preparing these little speeches in my head going like, actually, I'm also autistic. And I was like, you talk in the mirror and you're like pretending to accept an award or something. And you go like, I've overcome this and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I felt like that was really rewarding to me, being able to be known for something that I had control over. And I got famous, as they say, on Instagram before I was happy with my artwork too. I felt like very much a beginner. And then I became better just because I just enjoy artwork so much. And it's truly a passion and a hobby for me. It's not something that I ever decided to become my job. And that's why I started posting online. So yeah, I definitely feel very lucky that I grew up before the internet, before influencers were a thing, before art influencers were a thing. Because now people want to be like me for the wrong reasons sometimes, because they have an idea of like, oh, and they're going to get burned out. And I think with my autism, I've also been kind of blessed with not being able to kind of settle for less. I've always had to push myself to kind of beat that sort of idea that I couldn't become anything or hold a job or be professional. And yeah, that really pushed me to become both an artist and a business person quite strongly, and become surprisingly social, as they say.
So once you sort of spoken publicly about the fact that you have autism, did And did you notice anything? Like, was there a change? Was it like everyone was just like, okay, well, your art doesn't change your art. Your art's still amazing. So whatever, like, it doesn't really affect our opinion. Did you notice anything like that?
I mostly got messages initially of people going like, I had no idea, but I'm also autistic, so this is really cool to hear. And then I had some work opportunities throughout there because I shared it. So I was in a documentary, a short one on Dutch television about, it was kind of in a silly way, also stereotypical because they were focusing on very extremely talented people or like extraordinary people that like kind of like there was a professional gymnast, like this one person who was the best scissor maker in the world in the Netherlands than me with at this point already over 1 million followers. And I don't remember what the last person was, but yeah, I was the only woman too, which was interesting. That's so typical. But yeah, the initial response was really good, but I kind of went from going like, oh, I'm really happy to be sharing about this because I was still posting, you know, my artwork and just improving and not really doing that as a professional yet. Well, I mean, I had some jobs, but I wasn't kind of sold on the idea that this would be a long-term career. And then I kind of started to notice a little bit more prejudice and little comments from employers worried about me being able to function well. Like I was doing my book and it was really hard for me to communicate my needs. And I felt like it was, yeah, I was definitely not being supported as much, even though I was very openly talking about it. They just genuinely didn't understand what was going on in my brain. And obviously they, like, who does, except people who are autistic or have friends or family that are autistic. It was really hard. So yeah, I got a little bit shy about posting about it. Also, there was definitely a period in time where online the term autism was kind of used as a swear word quite often and an insult. It was very popularized on certain forums and places like Reddit and 4chan and places like that, and Twitter as well. But the alt-right like community definitely used it a lot as a genuine insult. So I kind of shy with using the word autism to describe myself and putting that out there. Yeah, genuinely from like a bullying perspective, even though at first everybody's like, oh, because you know, people can't really imagine that people would actually bully somebody openly about it, but it started happening again. Now it feels like it's calmed down quite a bit. But yeah, in the industry, I was also worried about what, especially these like internet bullies, as we will call them, very, how do you call it?
Trolls?
Yeah, I guess trolls, yeah. They, yeah, I was worried about what effect that would have on my professional image and the jobs that I was going to be able to take. But then I was like, to be fair, I'm an influencer. I've got this platform and I am pretty like secure of getting work. I'm currently not doing commissions, but if I wanted to, I get a lot of emails and a lot of requests about personal work, which I'm very, very thankful for. But I'm not doing it because I don't want to pick and choose once again. So I'd rather focus on doing client work and giveaways. Just makes me happier, and it makes the process a little bit fairer, I think, as well. Because otherwise it's just a first come, first serve, and people get upset that I'm not picking them. But yeah, I was like, okay, I have this huge like platform, this position where I kind of don't have much to lose, versus other people who have so much more to lose by potentially sharing something so private about their lives. So I was like, if I can give up a little bit of my comfort to help other people with that, then I'm going to do that. Yeah, it was a fairly easy choice in that regard for me.
We all have problems as well that we may not feel comfortable with sharing, but then you share it, you end up helping others, and you end up helping for the greater good, and it ends up doing good. And yeah, I was thinking about it earlier, and I know before we started a podcast we were talking about it as well, but there's so many things that can prevent you from getting a job. And I think a really good comparison is something that, you know, it's some stuff that we don't have any influence over. But I remember it was a job counseling session where people with autism were talking about
where they wanted to go. And this is when I was about 19, and I started to get a few job offers through my Instagram, and I started to get popular. And I was like, I want to start a business. So where do I go to get help with that? Because I was still living in healthcare at the time. I came from 24/7 healthcare. And I didn't have any education beyond elementary school. So it was this conversation that we had, and this one of these girls, she also lacked proper education. I think she was 28 at the time. She applied for a job at a bakery, and she didn't end up getting it because of her wish to get a kid within like the next 2 to 3 years. And it's just tragic that people have such selfish reasons to, you never know. And I think with a lot of stuff, unconventionally, we should support people and hire people, because for like a person that might be totally fine today and have no wish to have kids, no mental health issues, no disability, they might get in an accident and lose whatever, like their limbs, like can't draw the next year either. You know what I mean? Or they might get sick, or you never know. You never know. And I feel like it's so unfair that because these people have a pre-existing condition, as they say, right? We judge them based on that more, even though knowing the condition is so much more helpful, because then you can actually put stuff in place, and there's going to be less surprises, and these people are probably already used to living with it. Like, it might be more helpful because there might be people that have the same disorder or the same disability already working there, or the people that might get that disability or illness or whatever, and then that workplace will be equipped to deal with it better. It's silly. To me, it makes no sense that they would prevent like a learning opportunity like that in a professional field, but people still do it, unfortunately. And I'm still anxious about sharing it and being open about it. Every time I get more work offers and I get more high profile clients, I'm more and more anxious and nervous about the things that I've shared in the past, or things that I'm thinking about sharing. Even just sharing that I'm not feeling well, because I'm always worried. Like, I personally don't really suffer from very debilitating mental health issues, like, for example, anxiety or depression, which I'm very, very fortunate about. But people confuse having a bad day as an autistic person with one of those mental health struggles very often. And I have to catch myself and kind of tell myself not to worry about that stigma, because it's kind of unfair that I do that to these people too. I'm like, no, I'm not like that, but I'm like, it would be okay if that was the case too. But I know a lot of people struggle more inwards with these things, and I know that there's a lot of like campaigns about it, and everybody's complaining about how woke society is becoming and how much we're sharing about it, but there isn't really an opportunity to be completely open, because everybody is anxious about what it might mean for their job or whatever like judgment they might face. Yeah, it's really not as open as even I thought back in the day. And as somebody that doesn't struggle with these mental health issues, because people are talking about it, and because there's such a negative counter argument, I guess, or people going like, why are people so oversharing about this sort of stuff, and trying to get empathy over it. I'm like, that's not what's happening. They're just having the first conversations about something really important, so that everybody who might face them in the future might be able to talk about it a little bit more. Yeah, if you catch my drift.
When you see something like that's not right, take action.
Yeah. It shouldn't be controversial. It shouldn't be political to support somebody like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's sad because, like I said, it shouldn't be a loss of followers. Even if somebody is opening up and has a wrong opinion, if they're having a conversation, or like a wrong opinion, or if they're judgmental in a way that is not very thoughtful or very kind, the conversation's open, and this person is already being vulnerable by sharing something. So there's definitely always an opportunity to engage with that conversation with them and educate them further. So yeah, I'm really never as keen to jump on, the opportunity to completely push somebody out, because I think being critical is the first step of like educating yourself about a problem. Yeah, I think that's a good stance to have towards it.
I've also learned a lot about how you're perceiving like your business, the business side, but also because the creative side is, of course, very important to you.
Yeah.
And it's not just looking at like number. It's not just looking at the number of followers that you have on Instagram as being your drive to do more and to grow that platform. You seem to have a good balance between like the business side and the creative side.
I think a lot of people think, oh, well, like you want to grow, but I can never engage with all the people that follow me, and everybody's always going to vary in the amount that they engage with your content and follow you more attentively and then drop off for a little bit. So all that I focus on is that I want to make content that I want people to find me with. And if they find me with it, that's cool. But also the people that already do follow me, I want to make them happy with the stuff that I make. And I know that a big reason of why they follow me is because I share so much about my process and tips, and I actually engage with people and I give them feedback. And I have these conversations about the community and where I've been in my journey as an artist. I used to be quite motivated, and it's definitely still that case where I'm very motivated by positive engagement with my work. But I'm more so like 1.7 million is already like way more than I ever thought that I would have around me. So I'm mostly interested in, keeping those people engaged and making sure that my content actually stays refreshing and evokes something rather than staying relevant, as they say, or whatever. I feel like that's not really the point where I'm at anymore either. Like people know my name now, so they will look for what I've done, which I'm so happy about. That's I think end game, like dream job, where people just know who I am and they're looking forward to something from me, even if I'm not, on their feeds. I'm in their minds, if that makes sense.
Is it also giving you a time to get better and refining your artistic skills as well? Do you find yourself spending time on that?
Yeah. I feel like if I didn't have this platform, I would never be the artist that I am today. It's kind of given me the resources to study art by myself, because I didn't have the opportunity to study in a traditional sense. And I think a lot of people who start drawing online, and this is a conversation that was obviously really big on social media, are you good enough to start charging, like commissions? People are so eager to jump into the work field and do commissions and make money, which makes a lot of sense. Like it's fun to make money. And it's great to be able to sustain yourself with something that you're passionate about. But I took a year off last year, even though I was at, arguably a peak, because I wasn't happy with my own work and it wasn't sustainable for me. And now this year, I'm able to do way more jobs that I'm so happy about. And I'm able to make work that I'm, prouder of, because I took that time off and because I took the time to study. And I've definitely not taken a direct linear route of going, now I'm going to study and then I'm going to go into business. It was more like I do business, I study, I go business and study. And, it's always changed. But I think that there's definitely some future in that for a lot of artists online and freelancers in general. I feel like we shouldn't have to explain our gaps in our resume anymore, if it makes sense, because, we're always learning. But yeah, people have funded my education by supporting me through the internet, which is amazing.
Which is fun. Yeah. We didn't know like decades ago that this would be a way to make money and make a living.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So people for sure can follow you in what we've mentioned so far on Instagram, on Twitter. Follow you on Twitter at Cyarin. Also, you have your Twitch channel, Cyarin. Maybe you can explain a little bit about what you have happening there.
So I wanted to have a place where I can engage with my followers a bit more. I know I started doing YouTube way longer ago, even though I'm not passionate about video at all, as a format for my work. It was a means to an end to engage with people and show a little bit more about my personality and speak. And Twitch was just such a logical step from that, because I was like, oh yeah, and I want to do the engaging part. I want to have this personal conversation, this back and forth. But I'm not a video editor, so I was like, I know enough about computers to be able to do to set up a Twitch stream. So I'm doing that, and I'm also sharing my passion for gaming, which is just nice because now I can get paid to play Minecraft, and that's just a dream. It's super nice, and especially now that during COVID season, COVID year, I guess at this point, it's really nice to be able to see people and engage with them outside of conventions, because that was really it was everything. It was very intense, like weekends, because I would barely sleep, and I would always be, I use it to engage with my followers, but also with the industry. Like, I go to the after parties. I always have a drink with people. It's like the water cooler conversations in between when you're working and you're getting coffee for each other when you're working a booth. And then it's engaging with clients and like your following and people who support you. And on top of that, you also have like the conference weekend where you get drunk with your colleagues and you have a great time. So yeah, that I so miss. And we're using the internet now to do that. Twitch is what I do. I game with friends on there, people who work in different fields, which is also just really exciting, because we have all just got very different things that we do on the internet, but we're all creators. And then, I've got my Discord channel where I talk to people even outside of that, which is so nice as well.
Yeah, I watched you playing some bit of Mario Kart there the other day on your Twitch stream.
That was a very intense stream. I get very intense with Mario Kart, but that's so fun because I actually get to play with people who follow me as well. So.
Yeah, that was cool. It was cool to see that. Like the setup at the beginning, everyone was joining. You're saying hi to everybody. Then you're like, okay, well, now we're gonna all play together. Oh, and then everyone can only hear your voice, but you're going by people and
people post in the chat immediately as well if they won or whatever. It's it's really fun. It's
good. Also, it seems like you're having a lot of fun there. Also on the Twitch stream though, you're also doing some drawing stuff as well. So really, really cool. If you're more interested in that side, check that out as well. It's all there. Of course, you have your ArtStation page as well. People can follow you. Anything else, like final words you want to say, or ways people can reach you? Any of those two things?
There's so many things that we've actually talked about. It's hard to kind of encapsulate it in like one last thing to say about it. But yeah, I think the art industry, the art community online is evolving in a way that I've never seen before. It always is, and I'm always quite like analytic about it because it's my job, and I kind of grew into that. But I'm very proud of the way that we're continuing to evolve and the conversations that we're having right now, even though they're not always very positive and they're quite shocking sometimes as well. I think I've never seen the amount of engagement and personality before. Yeah, people are really showing the true selves on there, and it's really fun. That's one thing that's come out of 2020 that I am really happy about. So continue with that, please. It makes me very happy.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you so much, Laura, for taking the time to come onto the show and talk with us. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure lots of people will too. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and let me know when ArtStation is going to start streaming Mario Kart, because I will be there, and I will be winning, and the blue shells will be flying, and you don't know what's coming.
Nice. I know what I'm going to go practice. All right. So go practice that time.
Thank you so much.
See you on ArtStation.com, the global hub for creative professionals. You've been listening to the ArtStation podcast. Hit subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. And please leave a rating and review for the podcast. We promise we'll read them all. See you next time.